Hello, everyone, and thank you for attending this online learning session. My name is Nithya Mascarenhas, and I'm the Education and Training Coordinator here at the Liquor and Cannabis Regulation Branch. Today's session is intended for rural agency store operators, and it's in follow-up to the May 13th announcement from Minister David Eby. And it's also an introduction to some information about what it means to be a licensee with the LCRB. After today's session, you'll receive a copy of the recording with today's presentation by email, and we'll also send some supporting materials to go with that. Now, our goal today is to help you understand what it means to be a licensee with the LCRB, as well to shed some light on the processes that all our licensees follow. And some of these processes and requirements are the same as what you're already used to with LDB. We'll also go over some next steps that rural agency stores should do following the session to help you prepare for upcoming changes. Now, we really recognize that rural agency stores have some very unique requirements compared with some of our current license classes. And so part of our plan this summer is to reach out and survey RAS owners to find out more about your businesses so we can better understand your needs when we develop the terms and conditions for your license class. Now, we just have a quick copyright notice. I'd just like to remind you that today's learning session is being recorded. The material in this presentation is owned by the Government of British Columbia and protected by copyright law. It may not be reproduced or redistributed without the prior permission of the province of BC. There will be no live question and answer period, and your microphones have been muted. However, many of you have sent in questions, and we have received them, and we've designed today's presentation to answer as many of those questions as we can at this stage. I'd also like to start by acknowledging that we're grateful to facilitate this session from the traditional territories of the Lekwungen peoples and the Songhees and Esquimalt nations. Now, our agenda for today, we will have an introduction from Mary Sue Malachny. She is our Assistant Deputy Minister and the General Manager of our Liquor and Cannabis Regulation Branch. And following that, I'll take you through a presentation to talk about some of the requirements our licensees have when operating their businesses. And then we'll talk about information to be submitted about your stores. So to begin, I'd like to introduce the Liquor and Cannabis Regulation Branch's Assistant Deputy Minister, General Manager Mary Sue Malachny, to reiterate the May 13th announcement.
Those of you who didn't attend the conference call, Minister Eby made an announcement, which I can reiterate to you today, but you would have also seen it in the correspondence. And government is going forward to seek cabinet approval to convert your existing RAS authorization that moves through LDB at this time to a new form of rural liquor license regulated by LCRB by the end of 2020. So this is all part of the implementation process to move us there. So today we're trying to bring you together to walk through, as Nithya said, some of the things you'd expect from the government process, what this process will look like, and some next steps in the communications that you'll see going forward. So I know that it's been a long-standing intention of government to do this and a long-standing interest of the RAS to become regulated and have a specific kind of license under the LCRB. This change does require developing a new regulatory framework for a new rural license, so that's the part that will go through cabinet for approval. So I don't anticipate any trouble in moving through that process, but just want you all to understand that that still does require the final approval of cabinet. So it's been discussed, there's a high level of awareness around it, but do want to state that that has to happen. So this is all the build-up. So LCRB will require RAS operators to submit some store and business information through a submission on our new online system. We'd like to get that information by July 31st, and that way we can make sure there's no disruption to your business when the conversion finally gets approved, because as you can imagine, there's a lot of work in building up our online system to be prepared to do the transfer, and in your interest in our own, we want that transfer to be as smooth as possible. So we do need a set of information. For many of you, some of that information will be what you already submit to LDB. Not all of it will be completely new, but some of it will be. If we don't have the required information, a license won't be issued. So when the transfer happens, you'll no longer have there'll no longer be authorizations out of LDB on a certain cutoff date, and everyone will need to be transferred into the licensing, and we don't want anyone to get forgotten in that transfer. There will not be two streams where you can be authorized under LDB and continue as you are, and a stream where you can choose to get an LCRB option. So the light switch will turn off on the LDB authorizations and it'll turn on the LCRB authorizations. So this is the information that we need to make sure we do that smoothly. So you'll be hearing more about what that looks like as Nithya goes through the presentation. So just to finish off with a few comments, I want to say that I'm personally committed, but we're committed, and this is part of that process to making sure you feel informed and prepared for the changes that are coming. We really do need your participation and input. I'm absolutely encouraging you to reach out to the team, and the information on how will be in there, and it's in the correspondence you've received. We really want to make this process as efficient and informative as possible for you, and as efficient as possible for us as well, and for LDB. And this is great timing for this to happen from your perspective and ours, because we are right in the middle of a liquor modernization where we're moving off of a paper-based system and into an online system that was developed, the platform on the cannabis side. So that will also really be an exciting service we're able to offer and help us move through this in a more efficient ways. I think that you're used to also, some of you, to a more traditional paper-based thing, but you'll be going through this change with the rest of the liquor side for LCRB as well. And I think COVID, if nothing else, has showed us how important it is to be not on a paper-based system all the time. So you'll be hearing from us again soon as we continue to provide opportunities for you to comment through this process. There'll be online, there'll be mail, and so forth. And if you know of any RES operators who could benefit from participating in future sessions, I know you guys have a great network out there working together and sharing information. Please pass it on so we can make sure that everyone has the same set of information. If you think they may be interested in receiving more information concerning potential changes, again, let us know. So I really encourage them to reach out to LCRB, and the contact details will be shared at the end of the session today. So again, I'd like to thank the team for pulling this together and having a really comprehensive communications and engagement process with you. And so I'm going to hand you back over to our Education and Training Coordinator, Nithya, and she's going to provide you with a high-level overview of what it means to be a licensed, again, and some next steps. So thanks for the opportunity to chat with you today. I look forward to hearing more and to continue to work through this, and by the end of the year, for you to be fully licensed under the LCRB. Cheers, everybody.
Thank you, Mary Sue. If anyone was not able to hear my opening, I just want to mention again that for those of you connecting via Skype for Business, you should be able to see our slides. If anyone is just connecting by phone, we did email you a copy of the presentation earlier today so that you'll be able to open it and follow along. And I will do my best to mention the slide numbers. And after today's session, we will be emailing out a copy of the presentation along with lots of supporting materials. So we will move forward. So we'll move on to the information session portion of our morning. And before I get into the meat of the session, I just want to go over some of the common terminology that we use at the LCRB, just so that we all understand each other. Now, the LCRB, that's us, the Liquor and Cannabis Regulation Branch, and we are the body that regulates BC's liquor industry as well as the retail non-medical cannabis industry. And in fact, we regulate over 10,000 licensed establishments. And as well, we also issue special event permits for events in the province where liquor is served. And we have 25,000 of those that happen every year. So we're a busy place. Now, we are different and separate from the Liquor Distribution Branch, LDB, who you're quite familiar with. And the key difference between us, the LCRB, and the LDB is that liquor distribution is the supplier of liquor, and we are the regulator, and we ensure that people are following the liquor laws. Now, authorization is what you're operating under with the LDB, and that's a bit different than the licenses issued by the LCRB. It's not the same thing. An authorization from the LDB enables you to act as an agent selling liquor on the LDB's behalf, whereas a license issued to a private liquor retailer by us is issued to a specific establishment to sell and serve alcohol according to very specific terms and conditions. Now, through the morning, if we refer to the establishment, we're simply referring to your business, which is your rural agency store. Other establishments in the province are bars, pubs, restaurants. Those are the businesses that hold the liquor license. Now, for example, if a rural agency store were to become a licensee, again, the establishment would be your store. Now, as we've mentioned, until a transition is approved, the rural agency authorizations will continue to follow the rules set by the LDB. And if they are to become licensees with the LCRB, then they would follow the terms and conditions set by us, the LCRB. As well, today you may hear us refer to the licensee, and that's simply the person or the company who holds the liquor license. Your name is on the liquor license. And what that means is that you are ultimately legally and financially responsible for that license and anything related to it. Your terms and conditions are the rules you must follow, and we have handbooks as well as other resources to help licensees understand the specific rules that apply to their license. Now, we talk about compliance a lot, and put simply, compliance simply means following the rules. And we regularly inspect establishments all over the province to make sure businesses are following the rules. Our goal and our focus, however, is voluntary compliance. We'll also talk about contraventions today, and that's just a way of saying breaking of the rules. And as you may know, there are penalties involved if a licensee does not follow the terms and conditions of their license. So as an example, this is something you already know, if you sell liquor to someone underage, under 19, you could be fined or suspended, and that selling liquor to a minor is a contravention. It's a breaking of the rule. Now, for those following along, we're now on slide 9. The LCRB, we work within a system to promote public safety. And within that system, all of our licensees have some very important responsibilities. The licensee's first responsibility is to comply with the rules or the terms and conditions for their license class and to comply with all current liquor laws. Licensees also have to undergo inspections through our compliance and enforcement program. And it's also your responsibility or the responsibility of licensees to make sure that you provide us with accurate and up-to-date information about your contact people, your store, and your business information. And as well, it's the licensee's job to make sure that you keep accurate and up-to-date records. And we'll elaborate on each of these this morning. Now we'll provide you with an overview of what some of these obligations look like and what it specifically means to you as rural agency store operators. Now, something for everyone to keep in the backs of their minds, we still have work to do on what exactly the terms for your license class will look like. And as I mentioned earlier, and as Mary Sue mentioned, we'll be reaching out to store owners in the coming weeks to learn more about you and your businesses. So there will be some specifics about fees and information on how becoming a licensee may affect your business operations. And that information is not yet available because we're still working on it. There's still ongoing work on those parts. For those following along with the emailed copy of the presentation, we're on slide 11. Now, part of our goal today is to help you understand some of the processes that you may have to do in the future as a licensee under the LCRB. And these are processes that all our licensees are responsible for. For example, reporting changes. Now, some of these are requirements that you perhaps are already doing under the LDB. And for us at the LCRB, it's very important for us to understand each business we regulate. And so we gather information at the start of our relationship together. And if that information changes, we need to know. And so it's the responsibility of all our licensees to let us know of any changes to our business, or to their business rather. Now, some changes simply need to be reported to us, but other changes need our approval before the change takes place. So I'll give you some examples. If there's a change to your contact information or to the directors or shareholders of your company, that information must be reported to us. But other types of changes need to be approved before making the change. So for example, if you plan on changing the name of your business, or if you would like to expand your hours of operation, that has to be approved by us before that change takes effect. Another example of a change that would need our approval is if you're planning a major structural change or renovation that is making significant changes to the inside layout of your store. That's another example of a change that would need our approval. Now, the rationale behind why these changes have to be reported to us is things like changes to hours have an impact to the community, changes to your structural layout of the store will have an impact to safety or your ability to control or oversee the space. And that's why we have to approve these types of changes for all of our licensees. And once you're a license holder, all our licensees follow the same LCRB process to report these types of changes. We're now on slide 12 talking about the liquor register. And another responsibility of all our liquor licensees is related to the documentation you keep on hand in your establishment. And one of these important documents is your liquor register. And this is standard for all the licensed establishments that we regulate. Now, as a licensed store, you must purchase all your liquor from the Liquor Distribution Branch, LDB, or directly from a source that we authorize. You cannot, for example, purchase liquor from another private store. The liquor register is where you document all your liquor purchases. It's usually a binder, and you will have record of all your purchases, and you will also keep receipts for every single purchase that you make. Your register should also document any transfers of liquor as well as any damaged product. Our inspectors visit all licensed establishments, and they may ask to see the liquor register, and they are often checking to ensure that liquor is being purchased properly from the right source registered to the license. So it's very important to keep your register, to keep it up to date, and make sure your staff know where to find it, because your inspector may come in when the licensee is not around. We're now on slide 13. One thing that's a little bit different about being a licensee under the LCRB compared with being authorized under the Liquor Distribution Branch is we have a compliance and enforcement program, and that's to ensure that all businesses are following liquor laws. So we have a team of inspectors, and they travel all over the province, and they educate staff in establishments and encourage licensees to voluntarily follow the rules. So our inspectors will regularly hold both formal and informal education sessions, and as well, they also conduct regular inspections. So I mentioned earlier, our goal is voluntary compliance. So our hope is that by helping licensees understand the rules, that businesses will choose to follow them. But there are those businesses who do not follow the rules or who break the rules repeatedly or in serious ways. And in those cases, we can take enforcement action. So some examples of enforcement action could include a fine or a monetary penalty. We can suspend a liquor license and say that you cannot sell liquor for a certain number of days. Or we can add extra rules to a license that a licensee must follow. So I'll give you an example. One of the more serious contraventions is selling liquor to a minor, someone who's under age 19. And if a store is doing this, it's something that we consider very serious, and we can fine the licensee $7,000, or we can suspend their liquor license for 7 days if it's their first contravention. If it's not their first time breaking or contravening the rules, then the fines are higher and the suspensions can be longer. And so that's a little bit about what compliance and enforcement looks like under the LCRB. Now, because breaking the rules can be quite hard on a business financially, it's very important that licensees and their staff really understand their responsibilities in holding a liquor license and in selling liquor. So I mentioned earlier, our inspectors will hold informal education sessions with businesses. Another way we make sure that people understand their responsibilities is through the Serving It Right program. We're on slide 14 now. So all of your staff must have Serving It Right before you begin to operate under your liquor license. And who in your business needs to have Serving It Right? Well, the licensee must have Serving It Right. All of your staff who sell liquor should have Serving It Right, as well as any managers that supervise those staff. Now, Serving It Right certification is not something that's new to you as rural agency store operators, as it was already a requirement for you, and this is just a reminder of one of those things that will continue. Annual fees, slide 15. Now, one of the questions that we've been asked by rural agency store owners is there going to be a fee for rural agency stores to transition to become a licensee under the LCRB? Now, the LCRB, we do not determine the fees. That is done by Treasury Board. However, we will be recommending to the Treasury Board that existing RAS authorizations should not be charged a fee for this transition. And we'll let you know as soon as they make a decision on this. Now, that's the transition fee. All our license holders are expected to pay annual license renewal fees. And the renewal fees can range from $250 at the bottom end to $2,000 on the high end. And the fees are based on the amount of liquor purchased from the LDB annually, or liquor purchased annually. Now, just to give you an example, when licensees hit the $2,000 renewal fee amount, it's usually because they're purchasing about $2 million in liquor every year. So that's quite the high end of things. And again, renewal fees are based on your annual purchases, and this is our existing fee structure. As a licensee under the LCRB, it is possible to transfer a liquor license. For example, if somebody decided to sell their business, the new owner would want the liquor license transferred to their own company or their personal name, and it means that the new owner now becomes responsible for the license and responsible for following all the rules. And in this situation, a transfer application would need to be filed with us, and the new owner would submit a personal history summary, and we would do a background check as part of this process. Now, the ability to transfer a license is not something that was available under the LDB, so it will be a new opportunity for licensees under the LCRB. Now, in this next section, we'll talk about how our licensees manage their information with us. We're now at slide 18 for anyone following along. We are in the process of modernizing how we provide our services to our licensees. And we've developed a new online licensing platform called the Liquor and Cannabis Licensing Portal. So you may hear our staff refer to this as the portal. And it's essentially a website where licensees will be able to do things like update their contact information, report changes to us, submit new applications, pay their fees, and lots more. And so if a transition is approved to move rural agency stores from LDB to us, rural agency operators will start using the system to manage their information. Now, to help this be as smooth a transition as possible, we are asking rural agency store operators to become familiar with the system by completing a mandatory information submission, which I'll speak to next. We're at slide 19 for anyone following along. Now, important thing to keep in mind, and Mary Sue has talked about this, licenses will not be issued to rural agency store locations until the LCRB receives cabinet approval for the new license class. But while we wait for that, there's preparation to be done. So there's a mandatory information submission that we need from you, and this is information that all licensees must submit before receiving their license. Without this information, we will not be able to issue a license if and when the new license class is approved. Now, the good news is there's no cost to submit the mandatory information submission, but there is a deadline, and the deadline is July 31st this year. So you do have some time to get organized. We're at slide 20.
And again, Nithya, some of this is already provided through their LDB process anyway, so some of it won't be new stuff that we're asking for that they don't already provide. So hopefully it will not be too onerous.
Absolutely. Thanks, Mary Sue. Now, how do you complete this information submission? For anyone following along, we're now at slide 20. So these are the steps to complete your information submission. Step one, you will, here we go. Step one, you will register for a BCEID, a business BCEID. And this is simply a username and a password that gives you access to this and other government systems. And it just needs a one-time online registration. Now, once you've done that registration, you will take that password and sign in to our online LCRB licensing portal. There'll be a short process to verify your account, and then you'll see the option to complete the mandatory information submission. Now, let's go back to the business BCEID for a moment. When you register for the BCEID, you'll be asked to enter some information about the legal entity for your business. So it'll want to know things like, is your business a sole proprietorship? Is it a partnership? Or is it a private corporation? Something that's important to remember is that the correct person must be applying for the BCEID username. For example, if your business is a sole proprietorship, then the sole proprietor is the person who will register for the BCEID, and they are the person who will submit the mandatory information submission to us. If your business is a corporation, then one of the authorized signing officers of your corporation would be the person to complete this process. So that's important. Now, once you've registered for your BCEID, you've taken that username, you've logged into our liquor and cannabis licensing portal, you'll see some options of various things you can apply for, but I imagine the one that you'll be looking for is the Rural Agency Store Information Submission. So that's what you're looking for. And we're just going to take you through a few screenshots in the next slides to give you a sense of what to expect, as well as to give you a sense of what information you'll be entering here. And again, it's information that has been provided to LDB, so it's fairly standard. So again, as you start the process, it'll have some information to read, and it reminds you there's no cost to submitting and entering this process. Now, for those of you who are frantically taking notes, don't worry. We will be emailing you a checklist after today's session, and it neatly lists all the information that you'll need to sit down and gather before this. And for anyone following along on their own copy of the presentation, we're now at slide 23. And this is the section where you will enter some very basic information about your establishment, the name of your establishment, the address of your store, and the parcel identifier number. And this is the 9-digit number that's assigned to a parcel of land. And so where you might find this information might be on your land title certificate, in your property assessment documents, or perhaps you're renting your space and you might need to talk to your landlord or look at your lease for the PID number, the parcel identifier number. We will then ask for information about the store contact information. As well, we'll need your Rural Agency Store Certificate number, and that's the one that's issued by the LDB. You'll be asked to upload some documents. One of them is the floor plan, and it's to give us a sense of what the layout of your business looks like. So if you're wondering what a floor plan looks like, this is a sample for you. And it's basically a map of the inside of your store. And so when we receive a floor plan for you, it should be clear and legible. Make sure you include the dimensions of the room and detail the entire premises in which the business is located. So point out the storage rooms, the office rooms, the coolers, and so on. Now, one thing to keep in mind, you do not need to go out and spend money to have this done. You can draw the floor plan yourself on blank paper. Just make sure that it's very clear so that our licensing staff who look at it can very easily understand all the parts of your store. And this again is to help us understand the layout of your establishment. You'll then provide us with some information regarding who we should contact regarding this process. And there will be some declarations at the end, very straightforward, that you are the correct person to be submitting this authorization and everything you've given us is true and correct. And again, the piece of information I will really emphasize is not anyone can submit this mandatory information submission. It must be done by the person who has the legal authority to bind your rural agency store. So again, if your business is a sole proprietorship, then the business owner, the sole proprietor, would be the person to be doing this. If your business is a partnership, the partners, or if your business is a corporation, then the authorized signing officers of the corporation would be the people or one of the people to submit this information to us. Now, the nice thing about this being online is that once you've submitted the application or the information, you can track the status of your submission online by logging onto the portal. So, next steps. Before we finish today, I just want to go over the next steps for you as rural agency store operators, what you'll have to do and what you can expect to come. So, after today, we will send you an email. It will have a checklist for you. And I mentioned most of the pieces of information that we'll be seeking in the last few slides, but the checklist will have it all conveniently listed for you. You will sit down and gather that information, and once you have it organized, you can hop online and register for your business BCEID username and password. Once you have your BCEID, you will then log on to our liquor and cannabis licensing portal, and you'll submit information for each owned RAS location. Now, in the coming weeks and months, we'll be organizing other engagement opportunities. So I really encourage you, get involved. We want to hear from you and we want to work with you. And as well, you have a Rural Agency Store Advisory Committee, and they are a great resource to reach out to in addition to us. We are very committed to gathering your input and engaging with you as we move forward. And we will be providing you with more information as soon as it becomes available. But before then, I want to make sure that you feel free, reach out to the LCRB if you have any questions about becoming a licensee or about completing your information submission. Again, we recognize rural agency stores have some very unique requirements compared with other licensees. And part of our plan this summer is to reach out and survey rural agency stores to find out more about your businesses so that we can understand your needs for your license class. So please don't hesitate to get in touch. Now, this brings our online learning session to a close today. But as I mentioned, keep an eye on your email inbox because there will be some emailed information following this call, and we're very excited to be working with you as we move forward. Thank you, everyone, and have a wonderful day.